had to do that because otherwise you'd miss it if you were just looking at my face. Right, I will forward that. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here. It's so lovely for me to be here. I've known Drew and I've been part of Like Minds for the whole journey for the last 10 years. Guy that I used to work with at Ogilvy called Rory Sutherland, he was one of the first speakers at Like Minds 10 years ago. So I'm very familiar with it here and I really love what they're doing in Exeter and how it kind of takes you out of London and out of the bubble and seeing what real life is like with real people doing real business. So thank you very much for your time today and energy. So we're going to be talking today about disruption and fear and what is happening in the world. I mean, it goes on a little bit further from what they were saying this morning in terms of devices being on all the time. When I was first doing this job, I was having an understanding of traditional advertising in companies like Gold Greenleaf's Trot with Dave Trott and Simon's Palmer, and then I was at Ogilvy for 17 years. So I've been on a traditional marketing advertising route, but what happened was disruption started to happen. There were things called Facebook, and I'd send emails around to people saying, guys, there's something called Facebook, you really need to pay attention. And people would send me notes and say, stop spamming me. So I thought, well, why don't you want to know what I want to know? And it's kind of put me on this journey of being curious and understanding why people find it so hard to change and why it is so hard to, when people say, yeah, we want to innovate, but they don't really want to innovate because it takes hard work and courage. So I'm going to kind of discuss that a little bit today because change is unwelcome, it's a distraction, it's bewildering, it's all those other kind of words that you feel uncomfortable, but it's inevitable. And it's going to happen and nothing's going to stop it. So the sooner we kind of, have an understanding and take a step back that it's going to happen and not try to control it, the easier it becomes for us as human. And it's normally 12 weeks of when you start implementing something, whatever it is that is new into a company, and it's normally 12 weeks before people get to a new normal and they forget what it was like 12 weeks earlier. It's kind of around the time when you're having a baby and the baby's crying through the night and you just get to that 3-month period. That's exactly the same when you're doing change management within a large company. It's inevitable. So I had an experience with a company at London Business School, large pharmaceutical company, which kind of led me to put this Fearless Manifesto together that's in the book as well. And what happened was London Business School said, we've got this company coming in, very, very senior management running the company, and we want to kind of talk to you about the stuff that you were doing in Ogilvy as a practitioner. So you're not just talking theory, you're talking about getting your hands dirty, what you did to affect change within a large company, bringing them into the 21st century, moving them from an analog world to a digital world. So I said, how many of them? They said 8. Can you come into the school? I said, no. I'm not coming into the school for 8 people. We're not going to do a PowerPoint presentation for 8 people. We're going to sit around a table and we're going to go to Soho House and we're going to have a really nice little chat. And our workshop's going to be for 2 hours around some lunch and not in a classroom, them listening to me, broadcasting at them like you are now. So what happened was we talked about the changes that I had made at Ogilvy over the last 17 years. And then I started to say to them, what is keeping you awake and what's on your mind? And one of the guys there, very senior guy, said, I'm in the same narrative and it's over and over again. I'm living the same dream, if you like, where me and my team are coming up with lots of different ideas to put into action for change. We go to the line manager and the line manager always says, yes, but, and nothing ever happens. And the ideas are always in the bottom drawer. And I now have, with this course at London Business School, a KPI set for me, which is all about change. And I've been trying to do change, but I can't. So I don't quite know what to do. So I said, let me do something right now that is going to affect change with all of you around this table. Do you all have access to a pot of money? And they all said yes. I said, can you grab just a little bit of that pot of money from each of you to make one big pot? Discuss. They said yes. I said, so now you are all invested into this one big pot of money. All the silos that are within your company, you didn't really know each other beforehand. Now you'll know each other because you're all vested into this one pot of money. Now let's discuss over the next hour. Give me just a couple of ideas of what you could do that is going to affect some change, that is going to fix a problem that you all have. So they discussed it. I thought they'd come up with about 2 or 3. They came up with about 6 or 7 that would fix for all of them. So I then said to them, so who are you asking permission for then to do that? Now they looked at me with two things in their faces. Number one, like I'd handed them the crown jewels, like I told them something that they'd never even thought of. But number 2, with fear. And then I got a barrage of yes, but. Yeah, but we need to still go through the approval process. Yes, but we need to do this. And I literally just said, I'm calling you on your bullshit. I'm holding a mirror up to you. And it's you who is not taking responsibility for the change. And it was quiet, literally, for about 5 minutes as it sunk in and they realized that they were stopping themselves from actually doing anything. It was easier to blame someone else. My big thing is, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Because anything to do with change involves doing and action. So there's a couple of things here that are in the Fearless Manifesto that I kind of have devised over the last probably 20 years. The first thing is you need to develop curiosity. If you're not curious, you're not learning. You need to take yourself to spaces where you know nothing and you know no one. You need to go to events where you know nothing and no one. Yes, it's nice to meet people and network who you already know, but you're not going to really learn anything. You need to learn when you're uncomfortable in a space where, like I was at one event, and I literally just came away from Ogilvy, they closed down my innovation lab, and I was just Nicole from Nicole. Yeah, it's a very kind of grounding, humble place to be, but that's when you will learn the most because you're not in your comfort zone. So develop a curiosity, and the people within your organizations, if they are curious, put their KPI, attach their KPI to their curiosity, because if that's what they love to do, then they'll find more information for you and they'll then distribute it within your organization. 2, learn to learn. It's really hard to learn because we think we know it all. But you've got to, if you're in this business of change and things are in a constant flux at the moment because of technology, you're going to need to start learning to learn. Talk straight. There is no point having conversations with people where you say one thing but mean another. So you've got to keep it simple, stupid. It's something that I always used to put on the back of envelopes, KISS. Because if you can't talk straight, then you can't get your point of view across. And I learned this with my son, actually, because he was about to be expelled from school every 5 minutes, and I just didn't know what the hell was going on. And actually, this resulted in me writing the book Rough Diamond and creating a course called Rough Diamond, which was to get all of the kids who were struggling in school and about to be expelled into the Ogilvy workplace. But I started to understand when with my son, when he was going through that, he wasn't understood. He didn't understand the teachers, and the teachers didn't understand him, which resulted in clashes all the time. So I found a teacher who was, he was a translator teacher. So therefore, if Max ever had any problems, rather than directly going at it with another teacher, he could take it to Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson could say, well, maybe they meant this. And Max could say, oh, well, that's okay. So I started to then put that into my work life, getting a translator person who understood what you were trying to say and could then convey that to someone else. And it really helps within a large organization to get your point of view across. Lead with honesty. So again, like with the no bullshit, with the talking straight, you've got to be honest. You can't just say one thing and feel another. You've just got to live it. And that needs to be your kind of core value if you're affecting change. When I came away from Ogilvy, what happened was they wanted to sell a story that was going to be Nicole in true entrepreneurial fashion is leaving Ogilvy and we're so sad, and anyone that knows she's always wanted to set up her own company. Like, no, I'm not. You're sacking me. Let's just be honest. You're getting rid of my lab. What am I going to tell my team? I'm not going to sign anything and I'm not going to take any money from you, but I am going to leave with the truth. And the truth is you cannot be seen to be an innovative company if you're getting rid of your R&D facility. Let's just go with that. That then stood me in really good stead because it meant, one, I didn't have to lie to everyone. That would have gone totally against how I do business and everything that I stand for. But most importantly, when it came to writing a book, which I didn't even know I was going to write, I was able to write the truth and not worry about lawyers. So always try and lead with honesty, especially if you're in that space of change, because then you're building trust and people will come with you because they'll know that you're doing it from the right place and it's not for another reason. Always ask why. You know, that's probably why my son was about to be expelled from school, because he just kept saying, well, why? Or who said? Or how come? Or how do you know? And he was told to sit down and shut up and stop being a naughty boy, like we are within companies. Sit down, shut up, I don't want to hear from you. But I couldn't help myself. I was always questioning why. Well, maybe there's another way. Or why are you doing it like this? Invariably, most people would want to shut me down. But until I got a good enough answer, I wasn't doing it to be naughty, disruptive. It was just a natural ability to be able to find another way. And if there is another way, maybe it could be better, perhaps. Let's try it. You will never know everything. Just be happy that you won't know everything. But the more events you go to, the more people you speak to, you'll start to do connections in your brain, and you'll speak to someone who has a problem. You'll think, oh, I just met someone over there who has an event a year ago who could fix that, and you connect them and feel good about it. It's a really nice feeling to connect people and to connect things, to fix things. I always had a reputation of being a Mr. Fixer, as the kind of the Harvey Keitel, because I was able to not necessarily know everything, but I knew a lot of people who knew way more than me. So kind of knowing enough to be dangerous. But that goes back to curiosity, and it goes back to being comfortable in your own skin so that you can say, I don't know everything, and not lie. That goes back to the honesty. Keep it really simple, because that's how you can then spread a message for people to come with you on your journey. If you make it too complicated, they're not going to really understand what it is. They need to be able to say what it is you're trying to convey in just literally a few words. There's no off switch. So I know that kind of goes totally in the opposite direction of what Minta was saying and Laura was saying, but if you are a personality where there is no off switch, your brain is always functioning, you're always on, you can't help but constantly connect, even in your sleep. So if you find someone within your organization who is like that, who is always kind of raring to go, and you want to be able to harness that, not pull them back and tell them to kind of calm down. That's their personality. And I kind of go into that with a few examples of emotional intelligence testing and how to get the best out of your teams. So Rough Diamond was my kind of journey, and the problems I've encountered, the solutions I've put in place, and just really kind of an understanding of the power of doing and actions and being so honest. So that's kind of like the book. And the name Rough Diamond comes about because of this program that I put in at Ogilvy, which was to get these kids who are about to be expelled into an organization that only hired white middle-class Oxbridge-educated. And I wanted for the future, I was running an innovation lab, and all the people that were working there thought there was one answer and it was the end of the book, because that's how they'd been programmed. I needed the kids who were about to be expelled who were way more inquisitive. And the program started when they were between 14 and 16. They came into Ogilvy for a week, and then we kept them on the program until they then went to either school communication arts, which Dave Burrs, who you'll hear from later, does a lot of work with as well, and Ada does some work with them, and Ravensbourne, and I'm an honorary fellow of Ravensbourne. And we got those kids in when they finished their second year of school. They came into Ogilvy. We speed dated about 70 or 80 of them across every single course. Don't hire just a fashion person if you're in fashion. Hire a computer programmer. So within this school, they had literally courses mixed and mashed up in all different ways because it would have them think differently. So we would, when they finished their second year, we would then hire them for the year. We'd do 12 weeks in the summer. We pay them London living wage. They didn't have to, money wasn't an object, getting in and out of town all the time, and discriminating against kids who are in poorer areas. Then in the September, when they went back to school for their last year, they had to teach their teachers. I was fed up with the teachers saying what the industry wanted, and they hadn't worked in industry for 30 years. A lot changes in a year, let alone 30 years. So they had to teach their teachers. And then in December, they came back for 2 weeks. In Easter, they came back for 2 weeks. Then we would look to employ. And we would employ them in weird and wonderful positions. Most of the time, HR would say no, but I'd do it anyway. And I put the program together with the CEO saying no. For 2 years under the radar, we did this because I was so adamant that we needed that talent. And 2 years later, he came to me and said, I've just had a meeting with the Dean of Ravensbourne. I hear you've done a lot of stuff with them. I said, yeah, we've done this much. He said, that was a really good idea of mine. So that was another good There's another good lesson is that you do need leadership to be able to allow you to be a maverick, to allow you to fail, make mistakes, try things at a small scale. It doesn't have to be a big scale. Just prove the model. Just make something happen rather than talking about it and not actually doing it. So lots of examples of my time and what I've done, but I'm going to just take a few lessons of actions that I've taken. So there's the Ogilvy thing that was for 17 years of bringing them into the 21st century, which was not easy. Workflow systems, finance systems, digital asset management systems, everything was paper. Digitizing all their archive going back to the 50s, starting to do digital delivery, get rid of tapes, get rid of couriers, have people phone up to say, where's my tape? And me say, I haven't sent it. Sorry. People then would be screaming at me, you're going to make me miss my air date. Really painful stuff. And you have to have a stomach to be able to believe in why you're doing it, but also show the numbers as to what you're doing now currently costs this and takes this long versus what we can do tomorrow will cost considerably less and take considerably less time. Get that buy-in from that vision at the top, but then start to implement, but with the people. And implementing with people is not about technology, it's about people skills. So you need to have teams with understanding their emotional intelligence, what their strengths and weaknesses are. So my weaknesses were somebody else's strengths in the team. So they would then be pushed forward to meetings as my translator, because they were way better at translating what I would call speaking Russian to management at Ogilvy than I was. So I was understanding of that. The ego doesn't need to get in the way of actually making something happen. The other things that we would do would be emotional intelligence testing on time of day that they're most productive. So Shannon was always very miserable in the morning. The minute the Olympics happened, and we were bang in the middle of when the Olympics was happening, our times changed because we couldn't come in at the same time as everyone, so we had to stagger. So I would do the 7 in the morning, and she started to do the 11 o'clock, different people in between. What a different person. So we just kept her hours 11 o'clock. And she was just so grateful. HR said no, if we do that for her, we have to do it for everyone. And I just ignored it. So you do have to constantly, if you're wanting to do change, you have to go up against the system. I mean, quite frankly, 17 years, I was amazed I even lasted 17 days. But it was because I was able to show by delivering, which then increased productivity, which then increased people being happy and feeling heard and enjoying their job and not being micromanaged, understanding that they had their own voice. This was a really interesting case study that I did with Danone. They'd pulled me in to work out what were they going to do with their future supply chain from cow to consumer with infants, baby nutrition. And I did this with Kim, who's here as well today speaking. So, but the first question he said was, we need to put together a day and we need to see all these different people who are going to impact us technology-wise across that whole section. And I said, who are you speaking to at the moment? He said, no one. I said, I don't believe you. It's a progressive company that you're in. Can you go and audit your own company for at least a couple of days and then come back to me? Don't waste my time, your time, the people's time who I'm going to find and introduce them, and nothing will ever happen. He said, we're not doing that. I said, just go and do it. He did it, came back. He said, I've just found a head of innovation in Paris office. And I found out our worldwide IT are working with Accenture on 3 blockchain companies. I went, great. Now we can bring all of them together into the mix and you can start working with them. And he said, you're worth your money before you've even started, just asking the right questions to not solve the wrong problem really well. Okay. Working closely with WeFlip, which is part of Go Compare, another similar situation. When you've got large companies, even with your clients that you're working with, just do a little audit of their company and who is doing what, because I found 4 people doing the same job and they didn't even know each other. So the problem with a lot of consulting companies or agencies is that they are paid to solve the wrong problem really well. That's their business model. Let's just put loads more people on it and charge an enormous amount of money for bodies and for hours, when actually just find out, just question why, what's the problem in the first place? And this was really interesting with Havas. Havas came to me and said, we really want to innovate at the core of our organization. So I said, well, what does that actually mean? So I'd found out about 5 different people, 5 different things. Someone said M&A, someone said working more with startups, someone said we need to do more with product. I think this goes right nicely to what Felix was saying. Everyone has a different opinion of what it is that they need to be doing, so nothing gets done. Okay, and so I said to them, okay, let's do a big wall. Let's do a 100-foot wall and let's start to get the right people in the room and we'll put it all up in front of you. So it's not a 200-page PowerPoint. We actually are smoking the people out around the table to really find out what it is that's on their mind, and it goes up in the wall so there's no hiding place. So we then start going into what does innovation mean to me? Who are our stakeholders? What do they want? Which they couldn't really answer very well. And then we start going into different business models, leverage business models, rather than leverage the gig economy, rather than employ everyone. Maybe we don't have such a huge building. Midway through the day, a couple of people around the table say, but this is business transformation. And I say, well, that was the question. You want to innovate at the core of your organization. They said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. So just be honest. It just takes and if that's not what you want to do, if you want to wheel me out with my kind of jazz hands and lab mentality and showing them all these amazing things, that's also great. But don't say that you want something when you don't really. This was quite apt, Great Western Railways. They'd pulled me in to do a workshop on what's the future of ticketing. So I said, no one cares about a ticket. They said, no, but that's our whole strategy and that's what we want you to do. So I turn up at the workshop and I do the future of payments. And I bring the right person in who knows everything there is to know about payments for the last 40 years. And the sessions were called Stop and Think sessions. And I got a note back saying, it's the first time we've actually stopped to think what it is that we need to do. So just, again, any lessons here, it's really just to ask why. And thank you very much. Am I over? I'm 56 seconds over. So, thank you.